When I was a little girl, my parents did not go to church. They would send me and my brothers, and we would take our offering money that they would give us, and we'd go to the candy store and buy something for ourselves. And I kind of felt in my heart that that was the wrong thing to do, but I didn't really have a basis of it because I wasn't paying attention in church. But there was one day I was in Sunday school, and I remember my Sunday school teacher was talking about Jesus, and I understood who he was for the first time, and he loved me and he cared for me. It was like something came over and washed over my entire body, and I just understood who God was. And so I went home and I got on my knees and I asked Jesus to come into my heart. And I remember being filled with such joy. And I went over to my dresser and I found some money, and I went out in my parents' entryway and I rose that money up to the sky, and I said, God, take this, take all of me. I'm going to serve you with all of my heart. And that's pretty much how I lived my life all the way through high school and college. In fact, my nickname was Goody Two Shoes. So I was never doing anything that would upset God. I was determined to be a good kid. So there was one day I was walking around on campus and I found this tract on the ground. And I didn't realize that it was from a cult. I read through it, and it was talking about this God that I didn't know, a God that wasn't of love, a God that was ready to just send me to hell if I wasn't perfect. And so I was determined to be perfect. And in fact, anything my mom would have me do or ask me to do, I'd just jump up and do it. And it was just so crazy. At some point, she was like, you're just driving me nuts. Do something wrong. And I was just determined to do what this man had said in this tract. And I remember there was one day, and also when I would open my Bible, it seemed like everything I would read would be something that was about hell. So the devil was just all over me through this one little tract that I read. So there's one day I was riding along in the car with my mom, and I was looking up at the sky, and I was looking at the clouds, and it was just so beautiful. And I thought to myself, I love this God that made this universe, and I don't care if I go to hell, I'm going to serve him with all of my heart. And something inside of me broke, and I made a decision that, I don't care, and everything's going to be all right. And at that point, God really touched my soul, and he told me that I was going to be okay. And from that point on, I didn't care about being good all the time. I just wanted to serve God with all of my heart, and being good kind of flowed out of that. And it was a good thing that I got to know that God of love, because probably about a year after that, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. And she went through a horrible bout of it. It was just the most insidious thing to watch your mother go from being healthy to just falling apart. And because I knew that God of love, I was able to talk to her about him and pray with her and read my Bible with her. And we grew closer as a mother and daughter. So she died within 6 months of getting diagnosed. And it was a horrible time, but I had this love of God instilled in my heart. And I was so grateful that I went through the pain before, because it helped me to have that love in my heart. And also during that time, my dad, who was an alcoholic, we became really close. And he had nothing really to do with God, but he became really close to God. And our family was going to church, and we had a lot of peace. And probably about a year after that, I met a boyfriend that I had been really guarded most of my life with men, but I met this guy, and he was the most perfect Christian. He did everything right. He was a scholar, he was an athlete, he was really handsome, everybody liked him, and he pursued me for a bit, and I kind of pushed him away, but finally I let him into my heart, and we were just close, and he encouraged me to serve. We just served. We went to Africa, we went to Philadelphia and worked in the projects. We did all this stuff together, and we were serving. But we were also failing in the physical area. So we had this Christian persona that we had going on, that we were this perfect couple, but we were failing in the physical area. And that should have been a red flag for me, that he could be one person, one situation, another person, another situation, and kind of pressure me to do things that maybe I didn't necessarily want to do. But when he asked me to marry him, I went ahead and I said yes. And we were fine for a long time. Our daughter came along and we were happy. But the things that I saw when we were dating really started cropping up. And it didn't take long before I noticed that he was having a relationship with one of his coworkers that wasn't right. And he kept saying, oh, we're just friends. And I saw some things, so I knew that they were not just friends. And eventually one day, his friend's husband called me on the phone. And I remember seeing his number, his area code, because he was down in Long Beach. And it's like, this is her husband. He's going to tell me something. And he did. We met at McDonald's, and he told me all of this stuff. And I knew that my husband had been unfaithful to me. And by that point, I was pretty much done. I tried counseling with him when I noticed these things that were off in him. And he was just lying all the time. And so I just realized that this man was not someone I wanted in my life. And it wasn't only what he was doing to me, it was what he was doing to this man. And I just didn't want that character in my life. And so I asked him to leave. And it was really painful. And I remember I made a decision that I was going to be a single mom. And I wasn't going to be ashamed of it. Although I felt shame, I decided I was going to try not to be ashamed of it. But I was just going to be a single mom. And I just started on that path. And it was really painful. I left the church that we were at, and I was kind of wandering and not knowing where I was going. But one thing I was doing on Saturdays is that I was serving and volunteering. And as it turned out, when I was Googling one day, I found out the church that we were initially going to together, Oasis, had a Saturday outreach. And so I started going, and I got to know the people, and we became a family. So that place in my heart where there was something missing, God filled it up with that sense of family at Oasis. And in that group as well, I met a mom, and she told me about a mom's group that was on Tuesdays. And so I started going to it, and I ended up co-leading it with this other married mom. And I ended up being that single mom, that voice of caution when married moms would say things like, I just want to leave my husband because of this. I would help them to understand maybe that's not so bad what he's doing, and help to heal relationships. But then I was noticing that the single moms in our group, that they weren't talking as much. And in fact, afterwards, I would talk to them because their eyes were filled with tears at times. And they said, well, it's really hard for me to listen to a woman talking about how her husband won't take out the trash when my husband has basically thrown me out like a piece of trash. And so we made a decision that we were going to have a single parents group, or single moms group at the time. And it was really scary, and I didn't know what to do, but God just took over, and it's been His ever since then. And it's been really awesome because we have, since that was about 1.5 years ago, and now we have a single parents group, and it's awesome. And God is just doing some awesome things in Oasis Church, and I'm just really grateful to be a part